Okay, so I had a bunch of questions on the paper, and so I've moved things around a little bit on the Canvas site. And again, mine looks a little different than yours. But when you open it up, right, you go to modules, and I moved the information, all the information, up to the first module. Okay, so when you go to the first module, it's the Physiology Project overview. We'll look at that really quick. And then the research paper information, and then the video page information. Okay, so looking at our schedule, right? Theoretically, your physiology paper is due 10/28, but you have until November 1st to turn it in. Depending on what you plan on doing Halloween, you might want to think about getting that done before. Then for the video, right, it is due the week after. Okay, so theoretically, you could probably do them together, and realistically, you probably should do that. So let's look at each page really quick. So here's the project overview. It's very, very brief. Basically, you want any topic related to the subject of physiology. And one of the things is that you don't have to have it on physiology per se. It has to be related to physiology. So that's how you can get by doing a career, as an example, right? If you're going to write about occupational therapy, right, there's not a whole lot of physiology in that paper you would write, but the fact that it's related to physiology, probably because you're in this class, because that's your career goal, then it works. Same thing with a number of other things, sporting activity, diet, nutrition, exercise, diseases, all of those, fall very nicely under that umbrella. And in almost every case, I have, allowed students a little more leeway in terms of what they're looking at. I literally approved a paper on Spider-Man and what physical ability Spider-Man has based on those from his, functional and structural changes after getting bit by the radioactive spider. So, you have a lot of leeway in that. The idea of the paper is to gather college level information, okay, and do a little bit of research and then put that information into a paper, okay. That paper is going to be about 1,500 to 3,000 words, which comes out to about 6 to 12 pages in terms of your paper. It can have figures and tables in it if you want. They should be titled appropriately. They should have a title, table 1, a title, and then an explanation. So remember the lab report, a number of people did not do this. As a matter of fact, this is one of the biggest errors in the lab report, was that figures and tables should stand on their own, meaning when someone looks at them, they don't have to refer to the other parts of the text to understand what they're saying. And that was not done in a number of instances for the lab report. So make sure you do that with figures and tables. You don't need them. You're not writing the lab report. It is not going to be introduction, results, discussion, because you're probably not doing an experiment where that would be appropriate in terms of that. Should you have headings? Yeah, you probably should. You can write them however you want. You can make them, however you want, but having headings and subheadings makes it easier to orient the reader into what you're doing, especially when you change major ideas in your paper. A couple years ago, I had a student that got dinged a little bit on his lab report for the left justified all caps bold, how they were supposed to be in the headings for the lab report. And so on his paper, he made them right justified, all small letters, and underlined to make a point in his small rebellion against having to do it the way I told him to do it. So you can do it however you want there, but do you want to include them? Probably. I think that having headings and subheadings, at least some, help orient the reader better than a 12-page, one single paragraph. In terms of that. And then you have a video. And I want to be really specific on the video The idea of the video is to summarize your paper. All right? You shouldn't add any more information to the video that's not already in your paper. So all you're doing is you're taking that 6 to 12 page paper you wrote and then make a video on it. Okay? And so the runtime on your video has to be at least 5 minutes. So like I said on the information for there that we'll look at in a second, 500, right, to 600. 459, 601 does not make that runtime, okay? Don't make it longer. Oh, I got more to say. The whole idea is to shorten it and condense it into what you think is most important, okay? So that's looking at that. If we look at the Physiology Project, oh, sorry, I want this one. So this is my overview. I don't want the video. Hold on, let me go back one. So here's the paper, right? So this is right after, so I'll just go back here. So in modules, right, I just showed you the overview, and there's other information you can look at that has information about research and stuff like that. So looking at the physiology paper information, right, so I'll just, just clicked on that. So that's this. So it gives you a description. It basically tells you what we're doing, and then it has this handout. Okay, so you should download this handout or at least open it up. You should read the topic selection, right? And again, if you're worried about your topic, then let me know. Here's some more research stuff, and here's your submission requirement. This is what you should look at in order to submit, and you're going to submit it through this link right here. Okay, so now this is my paper, so it doesn't have the submit link on it. But if it was yours, you would see the submit link, and you could submit that. Submit it as a PDF is probably the easiest way to go, although I have set it up to accept other things. And your grading criteria actually would be this. So here's your checklist. This is, again, going back. This right here, this guide for the Physiology Project paper handout is right here. Okay, and so your topic should be appropriate. Again, you have lots of leeway, but as an example, unless you're talking about, I don't know, functional changes due to global warming's probably not a topic to connect here, or working in a bank or something. But working in a hospital or as a phlebotomist or something, that certainly would be fair game. So, you're not going to turn this in. This is for you. It's not for me. And make sure your topic works. If you're not sure, then email me. And if you're having a problem figuring it out, as an example, I didn't know this until the student actually wrote their paper on it. But I had a student that wrote her paper on sushi and all the nasty things in sushi that could actually kill you. The idea was that the semester before she had eaten sushi, gotten really sick from some sort of nasty parasite. She ended up in the hospital, was intensive care. They thought she might actually die. So she said once she got better, well, I'm going to write on that. I want to know what almost killed me. And by the time she finished, it was only like 3 pages long. She goes, okay, what else could kill me in sushi? So she kept on adding other things that were in sushi that could make you sick and die. When she got to about 8 pages, she said, oh, that's enough, I'm done. So she ended up, titling her paper, I think something like the 4 most dangerous things you might find in sushi. So, you can do that and look at those things that way. So, your topic is fine. You should have a logical flow and sequencing, right? So your paper should make sense, right? And that's why I said in terms of clearly presenting to the reader, having headings and even subheadings would help. And again, if you're doing a disease, which is fairly common, maybe you talk about overview, symptoms, what's called the etiology, that's what causes it, the pathophysiology, treatment, outcomes, whatever you want to add, you can just, subtitle those. That would help. Subject knowledge, you should demonstrate knowledge of what you told me you're gonna tell me. So as an example, maybe you decide to do your report on diabetes. Well, there's a whole bunch of different types of diabetes. If you look at Lab 19, the two major ones are discussed, and then gestational. There's also the emerging diabetes that they look at as well. So, when you do that, you have to decide, okay, am I going to just do one type of diabetes? Maybe I'm just going to talk about gestational diabetes because someone had when they're pregnant, or maybe you're going to talk about type 1 diabetes, or maybe someone in your family was just diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and you want to know more about it. So, you can choose to, either have this very focused, selected topic on one type of diabetes, or you could generally talk about all the types of diabetes, or the major types of diabetes. It's really up to you. But you should demonstrate the knowledge which you told me you're going to do. So in your paper, don't say I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about diabetes and then only talk about gestational, right? In that case, you would say, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about gestational diabetes and then talk about that. It's okay to give an overview, and it's okay to be very specific. It just depends on what you're doing. In terms of paper format, you just write your paper. You're not going to have to, follow, again, the format of the lab report. But if you have a format you've used in other classes successfully, you can do that. Worry about the context of your paper more than the formatting. But again, I think that it would help if you just had headings, at least. Again, your paper needs to be 6 to 12 page type. Right? If it's over 12 pages, I'm be honest, I don't really care that much. But, if everybody wrote, 12-page papers, it would take twice as long to read, theoretically. But I want text, right? Double space, normal font, normal margins. Your pictures, tables, figures, references do not count of actual text in terms of your paper. You should use some sort of college science referencing system. I don't care if it's Chicago or APA or MLA or format you get off a line or from the library. Copy the formatting system you used and the referencing system you used in your lab report. It doesn't matter, whatever you're most comfortable with. And that's fine. And the paper is theoretically due October 28th, but again, you have until November 1st without a penalty to submit that. Okay? So this talks again about topic selection. That's basically probably the same thing that it shows before. A little bit of our research. We want you to look for things. A little more detail about formatting. Here's the upload procedures, right? So make sure you find that portal. And that's what you would do for your paper. Now, when you look at the video, right? So we'll go back here. So here's the Physiology Project overview again, right? So here's the links to that. But when you go to modules, right, I just showed you the paper one. Now I'm going to show you the video one. So this is the video one. So this gives you a description about what it's to. This is a guideline for the video, right? And here are some ways to create the video. I'm right now doing this on Screencast-O-Matic. Okay, Screencast-O-Matic, you can download the free part, and it is free to download. It's actually kind of a nice system. The free portion of it only allows you to do 15-minute recordings. Okay, and then it will also put a watermark, a little brand name on it. Which is fine, and if you want to use that, that's fine. And it's nice because you can record in a little window if you want, and you can make this window size where you see me talking a different size, and you can record your screen as well at the same time, right? You've got that option. And again, 15 minutes, your paper should be between 5 and 6, your video should be between 5 and 6 minutes, so don't worry about that. You can also, just make a video with your phone. Or tablet. If you come over here, when you look at the Canvas, along this left side where you have your Canvas menu, if you go to the little picture of the screen that looks like air's coming out of it, that's the studio. And on studio, it actually is, I'm 99% sure, Screencast-O-Matic, and you can, do that in your studio and as well. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can do your video, and you can be creative with it and things like that. But the idea is to summarize your paper. So you don't need to put in your references if you don't want to, because you've already have them in your paper. But you shouldn't have any information that's, you could have a different figure or graph or something, table, but you shouldn't have any information that's not presented in your paper. So the video should be fairly easy because, one, you understand that material because you just wrote a paper on it, and two, your body material is the paper. I would recommend not just sitting there and reading your paper, and the idea is you're never going to be able to get all of the information in your paper into a 6-minute video. Don't try. What you have to do, and this is the major portion of the assignment, is figure out how to pare down the information you have in your paper and to put it into video format that makes sense and is worthwhile for the person to watch. So that's what your goal is in terms of this. Okay. So looking at the video paper, right, there's also a checklist here, and it again talks about the time. Okay. So make sure it has a runtime that ends, right, at 5:00 to 6:00, somewhere in between. Okay. Do not make it longer. Do not make it shorter. Right. If you have at least 6 pages, you should easily be able to get to that timing. And in fact, if you have only 6 pages, you're going to have to cut stuff out. So it should have a name and title. You can do slides if you want, and you can literally just show PowerPoint over the screencast or the studio and do that. You can film yourself talking about stuff. It would be nice to have some sort of visual aids, but you don't have to. Have like you don't have to have a PowerPoint if you don't want, or slides. You can use whatever you want, and again, be creative if you want to be creative. Be boring like me and just, voice over a PowerPoint if you want, like we do for lectures. So, give an overview of your presentation, give me the major information about it. The appropriate material should be fine because, again, if you were right with your paper, you should be right with your video, right? For pacing, try to, be conversational. Don't go too fast. Don't go too slow. What ends up happening is students often practice and are nice and slow, and then when they actually get on camera, they speed up. So be wary of that. Try to get it so it makes sense and you can hear it. It should be at a college level. It should be interesting to the audience, if you can do that. It should be interesting to you, and you should make it seem like it's interesting. Again, visual aids would be important. Visibility, right, is important. If you're trying to show something, then hopefully you can see it fairly easily. Your presentation style, right, matters, and just try to basically be yourself. It's always nice to have a conclusion. Again, the total time, notice it's in bold again, 5 to 6 minutes. The presentation represents a minimum level effort, meaning you spent time on it and thought about it. And then here's the due date again, November 4th, but you can turn it in up till November 8th without a penalty. This talks about your topic, which is just your paper, and the research requirement you've already done, so there's none of that because it's your paper. And here's the upload procedure. Here are all of the video formats that Canvas will accept, right? So make sure it's one of those, and make sure you're on the right video page. So last semester I had some students trying to submit their paper in the video portal or vice versa, right? Notice here, if you're trying to put a PDF, it won't accept it. So double check to make sure you're in the right place. Again, more technical thoughts here, advice, scoring. Both projects are worth 25 points apiece for a total of 50 points. So if you still have questions, let me know. Otherwise, use this and use that information that you have to be able to do your video. But the one other thing that I wanted to mention and really stress is that you can have anecdotal information in your project. Meaning, you decide to do diabetes again, right? then you can write about why you decided to do diabetes. Well, my grandmother just got diagnosed with diabetes, and here's the things she had to do differently in her life to make those adjustments. So that's not purely scientific. It could be anecdotal. Yes, you have to have some science in it, but you don't have to have all hardcore science in it. I think that's another thing students are trying to do. Like, how do I get hardcore science into nursing? You're probably not. And if you are trying to and it's not natural, then you're working too hard to do that. So, I've had a number of students write, the day in the life of a nurse, or, here's what someone does in the ER, or here's what, someone does in intensive care, or a flight nurse, or whatever it would be. So, again, you can have some anecdotal, experiential stuff in your project, and it doesn't have to be all purely science. So again, email me if you got questions, but otherwise, good luck with that. Okay, I lied. I just thought of one more thing. If the other thing that I'm just thinking of, your video is due again on the 4th of November. Again, you can turn it up till the 8th. But if you are one of those people that are going to be really happy or really sad depending on the results of the election, right, which is before that, right, and you might, be so despondent one way or the other that you can't work on your stuff, then you probably want to get your video done before the election, right? And again, so it's not a huge amount of work, but it's probably the easiest 25 points in terms of the amount of information you have to master and learn, because you've already done it. The video would just be the technical aspect and figuring that out for the most part, and then deciding what you want to put in and what you don't. But remember, that's election week, and if you're strongly going to care one way or another depending on the results of the election, then you may want to get that video done a little earlier as well. All right, so good luck. Let me know if you have issues. Bye.